Grade 2, $150,000 event on the turf course listed as good. The San Gabriel Stakes and the usual QT 1 to 2. It's all part of the Claiborne Stakes Showcase, and one of the stories within the story, Jeff, is Proudinsky, a two-time San Gabriel winner. You have Patrick Valenzuela riding him for the first time since winning the Bay Meadows Derby, Jeff, in 2006. Bay Meadows in 2006.
So they're reunited. Okay, that's great.
It's been a while.
Yeah, all right. And I think PVAT will fit him just fine. And Proudinsky, the same thing I said about the usual QT, loves this turf course. Proudinsky, 3 out of 4 with 1 second, and usual QT undefeated in 3 starts. You know, grass racing at this time of the year can be a little volatile. It could be strong. It might not be so strong because some of your grass horses are taking the winter off. But this race came up really tough.
Well, you look at the usual QT and has not only done his damage here at Santa Anita, but down at Del Mar as well. This was the Grade 1 Eddie Reed in a sensational performance, going 1 1/8 miles late July down south.
This was his best race ever. It also was a career top in terms of the Beyer number, but visually, he was just breathtaking today. I mean, in this particular race, he draws off wins for fun, and he's not usually the kind of horse that wins by daylight. Most of his wins have been, you know, fairly close, but that one, he just pulverized his field. And in fact, he probably ran too good for his own good.
Yeah.
Because that race convinced James Cassidy to try him in the Pacific Classic, which turns out that didn't work. But yeah, you try it once.
But when you consider the competition the usual QT has been facing, he has run in 3 straight $1 million races.
Right.
The Breeders' Cup Mile, $2 million, facing some of the best turf horses in the world. He's lost those 3 races by a combined 6 lengths.
No, I mean, he's one of them. That's the thing. He is a terrific middle distance turf horse. You can go a mile, obviously, 1 1/8 miles, clearly within his range. And that's what he does. And there's enough money now for a gelding like this, who's only 4 turning 5, so there's still plenty of racing for him down the road, for him to really make a very, very impressive bankroll before he's done racing. It took a while before he broke his maiden.
Yeah.
You know, he was not one of these superstar type horses right off the bat. He was a maiden until well into his in fact, he was a maiden in August of.
Well, like crystal clear afternoon here in Southern California. And 11 minutes out now to the Grade 2 San Gabriel Stakes. We'll be checking in with Jim Cassidy shortly with the usual QT. And you look at the numbers. 8 of 18 overall. He has already banked more than $1.4 million. Third to Goldikova in the Breeders' Cup Mile. And how about that Breeders' Cup form? Really holding up and then some here opening day.
Well, we already saw Sydney's Candy, who was 6th in that race, come back and win yesterday. But I get any race that Goldikova wins and Gio Ponte won 2nd in. I mean, they're among the 2 best in the world. So the usual QT running 3rd at 22 to 1 that day. And didn't get a real comfortable trip. Stayed on well to be 3rd, and he's had enough time between that hard race and the race today, almost 2 months. Yeah, he's not a real good workhorse, so he's a hard horse to really watch in the morning and say, oh gee, he's ready to run. He's tough to figure out sometimes, but I'm assuming he's ready to go.
Well, he's not 22 to 1 today. He is the odds-on favorite, and his trainer Jim Cassidy standing by with Scott in the paddock. Scott.
Jim, we've had one look at this turf course so far on the meet with the rain that we've gotten. What do you think the condition of the turf course, or how it can or will affect your horse's chances?
Well, I really can't say how it'll affect it. The turf course looked great. I watched the 5th race. There was a little something coming back, but nothing really. It wasn't really soft. I think it's listed as good, which is probably correct. How it affects him from one racetrack to another, it's hard. He's been on the off before, somewhat off, but and he's run well. So there you go.
Well, we know he loves Santa Anita, no question about it. Coming off the Breeders' Cup, obviously there's a lot of attention and a lot of buildup and focus on a race such as the Breeders' Cup. How do you, when you come out of a race like that, reshift focus and come up with a game plan? Is it a difficult situation to be in?
Well, you give him time. Obviously, you give him time, and you don't work him for a while. And, of course, between the turf course at Hollywood with the rain we had, we couldn't use it. And then here, all the rain we've had, I couldn't use it again. So he's had fewer works than I would have liked, but he's pretty keen right now. It's maybe not the best situation, but you know, if he runs his race, he'll be very tough, but he is pretty keen right now.
Could the keenness put him on the lead in a race that seems to have not a lot of pace?
I'm hoping that the one horse goes and we have something to focus on, because I really don't want to be on the lead.
Well, best of luck in accomplishing that and hopefully a victory.
Thank you.
Jim Cassidy, guys, looking to hopefully get a little pace, and he told me that he's thinking that maybe Patrick will show a little pace down on the inside.
But he hasn't won in a long time. I would expect him to be really up against it here. If I'm looking for a price, Violon Sacré with that man Joel. He likes a little give in the ground that he can kick home if on his best day. If he can better his citation effort, then he's right there off his Eastern form.
At 7-1 for Patrick Biancone. All eyes on the usual QT. 3-5 post time for the Grade 2 San Gabriel Stakes.
Sent on their way. Meteor from the outside gate breaks smartly and sets off for the lead, although they're all lining up out here. Now here comes Violent Sacre in the red cap to take over. On the inside, Proudinsky is right there. And then we have the usual QT pulling his way along right in behind this leading group. We come back to Medici Code, who's taken back just behind Jeranimo. And last of all is Expansion. Only 5 lengths would cover the lot. Into the turn they go now, and it's Vision Sacre out on the lead, just over a length. In the second spot is the usual QT. On the inside of that comes Proudinsky. Then there's a gap of 3 back to Meteor. Jeranimo scraping the paint in the 5th position. Medici Code second last gives them 7 length start, and a length and a half back to Expansion. Onto the backstretch they go, and it's still Violent Sacre taking them along a decent pace. The usual QT's taking a nice old second, keen to go on the far side. Close up third is Proudinsky at the rail. Those 3 continue to race 3.5 ahead of Meteor. Jeranimo is down at the rail. Then we come back to Medici Code, who's still giving them 7 length start, and a length and a half further back to Expansion. Into the far turn they go now. Violent Sacre in front, 3 parts of a length. The usual QT now coming to tackle from second. Proudinsky still in with a good shot down at the rail. 2.5 back to Meteor. Jeranimo's at the rail. Then Medici Code and Expansion. They're at the top of the lane now. On the inside, Proudinsky has room and goes on as Violent Sacre drops out fast. The usual QT. Jeranimo getting a run at the rail. And Jeranimo now coming flying through on the inside. Jeranimo strikes the front from Proudinsky. The usual QT did not go on, and it's old Jeranimo in a dominating performance today. Jeranimo and Rafael Bejarano could not have been more impressive. They win it easy. Proudinsky second. The usual QT was third, and Expansion finished fourth.
The Stroop champ, Jeranimo, now a perfect 2 for 2 and graded stakes winner on the grass.
I remember him in the Stroob, and I remember him in the Big Cap, and I'm telling you, this horse is a much, much better horse on grass. His win at Hollywood was impressive, but nothing like this. He just crushed a terrific field. I mean, that was the Breeders' Cup, you know, 3rd place finisher. He just blew away, and Proudinsky, the defending champ, had nothing when challenged by Jeranimo, who scraped paint, draws off, and puts daylight between him and the rest of the pack. And I can tell you, 147 in the 5th on this course is flying.
With some giving it. Michael Pender pumped up following that performance by Jeranimo. Another win for Rafael Bejarano, and what a ride by Bejarano. The patience, saving ground on the fence, waiting for daylight. Once Jeranimo saw that daylight, accelerated instantly and ran right by Proudinsky, and the usual QT really never in the mix from the 16th pole home.
He never was really happy. He was wide without cover. He was going head and head, chasing or stalking Violent Sacre, but it was with Proudinsky, so he was virtually in a race with a really high, tough horse all the way around the racetrack and kind of gave way.